Hi everyone, thanks for coming, thanks for watching. I'm going to tell you about how I built a research panel from scratch at the CBC. So basically, I didn't want recruitment to be a huge barrier to my research efforts, so I took a straightforward approach, and I found a tool that I could use to catch, sort, and communicate with my participants. And then I found a link to that tool and I put it everywhere. And then I was just like, okay, I did it, like great, cool. But really, after celebrating my achievement, I'm gonna just tell you about the steps and the context. So for those of you who don't know, CBC is an acronym for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. So it's a mix of BBC, NPR, PBS, with a sports component. So in general, CBC has a large presence, and the things that my team designs are for everyone who can listen to music and radio. Now, in my own experience, I haven't had the opportunity to work in a place with like a super well-established research practice, which is kind of nice. So when I arrived, I knew I'd be getting requests like very panicked, like we need a gorilla test right now, but I'd also have time to plan like longer form studies. What I didn't know is that there'd be roadblocks. Ones I had zero experience maneuvering around. The two major ones were budget and privacy concerns. So when you don't have budget for incentives, you have to start thinking creatively about what is rewarding for your participants. Because CBC is a public broadcaster, people sort of lean towards being more generous with their time. But I still have to start thinking beyond cash, gift cards, and small devices, and start thinking about the emotional, also known as free, reward. I realized that being invited down to the CBC is a big deal for some people. Getting a tour of the building is a big deal for some people. Seeing Matt Galloway coming out of an elevator is a big deal for some people. Totally a huge deal, yeah. But I also know not everyone's going to come down for an emotional reward. So I thought, okay, what do I do? I talked to marketing and communications department and tried to get swag. So after weeks of sort of emailing someone in BC, emailing someone in Halifax, I amassed leather-bound notebooks, really big umbrellas, T-shirts of all sizes, more T-shirts, bottles of water, and Arizona iced tea. So depending on your product and the sort of scope of your company, I'd encourage you to first think of the emotional reward, think of the free reward, but then also talk to people in marketing and try and get some free swag. So the next roadblock was privacy concerns. And this relates to the recruitment screener. So if you aren't familiar, this is the thing that you use to decide on who you're going to speak to. So my recruitment screener has questions like, do you listen to CBC Music? Do you listen to CBC podcasts? Do you listen to satellite radio? Et cetera, et cetera. And when I got to CBC, I thought, oh, duh, I'm going to use Google Forms because we already use Google products and it'll be free. And then in that scenario, I would have them fill out the form, I'd get their contact information, I'd schedule the sessions in Google Calendar, everything would be going hunky-dory. But Google Forms doesn't provide the level of privacy and security around participant data to satisfy CBC needs. So I couldn't really wait to go through the process of talking to legal, getting approval. I just wanted to start my work right away. So what did I end up using? That's why you're all here. I used Zendesk. Now, Zendesk is not at all designed to be used as a research panel tool. If you don't know what Zendesk is, it's a tool that people use to create and resolve customer support tickets. So just imagine how much passion, creativity, and persistence it required to make this work for me. So if you end up using Zendesk, or if you end up using a hybrid of what you already have on hand, or you're just sort of running on fumes, here's the part where I'd say take the notes. This is what you need to have in this tool. So the tool needs to store the names, email, Skype ID, any sort of contact information you have for your participants. You need to be able to communicate with your participants in some kind of self-contained way where you can keep a track of the conversation history. Zendesk, I'll give it 1 thumb up or 2 thumbs up. It allows you to store internal notes. So if you have things like, this participant's away for 6 months, or this participant can only do remote testing, or you're doing like an additional layer of vetting or screening, you can put all that in the internal notes section. You'll need to be able to see what the participants said in the recruitment screener. So either you're going to import that data from somewhere else, or this tool is going to have a form that participants can fill out. And you need to be able to sort through your participants. So this could be by screening criteria, or it could be by recency. And this becomes important if you have, hopefully, hundreds and or thousands of participants in this panel. But also, if you have multiple researchers accessing the panel, you want to know who was contacted last. So once you've gone through all these steps, you have this dream tool, you're going to want to start spreading it around. So as I mentioned before, I found a tool, a link, I put the link everywhere. So I talked to social media, and they said, put it on Twitter, and I was like, all right, cool, you guys do that, put it on Twitter, thank you. I was able to talk to people in my network because CBC has a huge reach, but even then I went further. So I talked to people I went to school with. I talked to retired high school teachers to see if they had friends who'd be interested. I asked acquaintances if they had coworkers who'd be interested, and I asked relatives if they had neighbors or acquaintances or so on, just far away from me, but get the link out there, tell me if they'd be interested, I will talk to them. I also asked the developers on my team if they could put it in the description of the app in the Google Play Store and in the App Store, which worked for 2 seconds, but I would try something like that again. I didn't put the link in any forums, but if you guys know your users gather in forums, definitely put the link there. I also included customer service. So when someone contacts the CBC to say, what was the name of that song that played in between the news broadcast and the interview portion of my favorite morning show, I made sure that the link would appear in the auto reply with a little message saying, or asking if they want to provide additional feedback on their experience. I talked to the marketing department again, which if you guys are following these steps, they'll already be your best friends because you guys are getting all the swag from each other. But I asked to see if there are any newsletters that go out. There are, so the link went there as well. Also, employee resource groups. If you work in a big company and you have these, find out if they'd be comfortable with sharing the link amongst their networks. Major drawback to Zendesk, there are many, but this one is that you can't trace where people came from. So if you're trying to create success measures as to like which is the best touch point, find a tool that does that for you. So like a garden or a floating bonsai tree, you really need to tend to your panel. And this goes a long way if you're working with a micro budget. You need to make sure your participants feel like they've had an impact, make them feel like they're in the loop. This ties back to that free emotional reward that you're working with, and it also takes advantage of the tool. If you have one that has self-contained communication, this is when you're going to be using that a lot. So if you know that you have a bunch of early adopters, try and tell them what you can, like share what you can about either features or design that their input has had an impact on. My personal plan and approach is to keep reaching out to people who participated, ask them like if they're still waiting to subscribe to podcasts or caught up on podcasts or binging podcasts or whatever I ask them, it's going to be based on the internal notes section. So after finding the tool, customizing it to suit your needs, getting real live human beings to agree to participate, it's time to reflect on the good things about having a panel. So if you've done a good job and made sure participants feel like they're part of the product process, you've already begun to pave the way for future participation. It kind of makes asking them for more of their time a bit more frictionless. You're also able to control the messaging around your screeners, so you can do your best to weed out professional participants. So I didn't want polished people, so I didn't use language like, come down for a usability test, or I'd like to schedule a contextual interview, or participate in this study. I just said, come talk to me about how you listen to CBC. You'll no longer have to sweat and have like an anxiety attack about these last-minute research requests and be like, ugh, I'll do guerrilla testing instead, which, guerrilla testing is cool, but when you have a panel, you can actually talk to the people that match the parameters of your study. So for me, it was truly delightful, as you can tell. So psyched about having this panel, and I could have just been like, oh, panel forever, but a big sort of eye-opening thing is if you have the panel and you're able to sort through the recruitment screener answers, you can tell where the gaps are in your efforts. So like me, you might say, everyone here is from the GTA, or how come no one here uses assistive technology? So then you might think, okay, I will start using touch points that are specific to geographical locations. Or I will show my screener to someone who knows about accessibility and say, is this accessible? Like, does this make sense? Can screen reader people use this? And with that, we've come to the end. Wait, I'm not done. Like the end, not the end. So I wish you guys the best of success with your recruitment efforts, and I actually want to be kept in the loop because this was really like, came from nowhere, just came from passion and desire and like a little bit of anxiety. So I want to hear about how you guys do it. Add me to LinkedIn because I don't use Twitter, or come say hi face to face. Thanks.